Welcome to Movies Are Life. I'm your host, Nathan Chandler. Today I'm podcasting from a vacation cottage outside of London to cover number 16 on the 50 best rom-coms list, The Holiday. Funny enough, this cottage is owned by today's guest, and he is podcasting from my home. I wanted to welcome in first-time guest, Tyler Johnson. How's it going, Tyler?
Nathan, it is so lovely to be here. I can't believe how amazing your home is. Do you have a water slide in your backyard? That's fantastic.
Isn't it wonderful? I'm glad you're good at accents because I'm horrible at them. So,
listen, you brought me on here. I have to do Kate Winslet some form of justice. Like it's a rule.
Yeah. So you have acted for a really long time. My oldest daughter, she's been doing a lot of theater and stuff, and she cringes anytime I attempt a London accent or any kind of accent at all. I should say English accent, a British accent, not a London accent.
They're deceptively tricky. The trick really is to not care. Like if you're really trying to do a good British accent, it comes across very, very rough. We actually have I know her pain because my dad, who's actually a pastor by vocation, was one time roped into being in the Christmas pageant as a persecuted Anglican minister. And he had one line and they're like, just denounce your faith or something. And he just goes, I will not. Like forever. It has been 30 years and we have not let him live that down.
That's hilarious. That's quite funny.
Iris and Amanda are in exactly the same place.
Where do I want to go? By myself? Depressed at Christmas.
Just 6,000 miles apart.
Home exchange. We switch houses, cars, everything. Bingo. I need you to answer this.
Are there any men in your town?
Perfect. Hi.
Hello. I'm Miles.
I'm Graham, Iris's brother.
Do you want some company?
Yeah, love some.
Excuse me? Okay, sorry about that. Boob Grace. That was accidental.
Both Tyler and I went to Baylor, and I think I'm just a couple of years older than you. Not that much. What year did you graduate?
That's none of anybody's business. Thank you very much, Nathan.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, So not by too much, but
The Holiday had not come out yet.
Yeah. Well, Tyler graciously appeared in a lot of little short films that I did and with some friends, and he definitely elevated the material. So I jokingly say that that's not public anymore because I'm sure you may not because of your acting ability, but because of the production quality of such films.
They were on my reel for a little while.
For a little bit. So yeah, tell everybody out there who isn't familiar with the work that you do, your background.
So I got my degree in theater from Baylor University, Sick and Bears. And then moved to New York to study at the Upright Citizens Brigade. I was very quickly disabused of any idea that I was going to be the biggest star, because when I got to UCB, I was there at the same time as Ben Schwartz, Bobby Moynihan, Donald Glover, and all these guys were a couple of years ahead of me. And so I don't know them personally, but I've been in rooms with them consistently for a year and a half. And that was a very educational time to be just oh yeah, it's a different game out here in New York from Waco, Texas.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. But then after that, I moved to Los Angeles, and I was there for about 13 years. And just last year, most recent thing I did was, if you are a college football fan, you saw me in a Dos Equis commercial, picking up a case of beer off of a welcome mat that says "Better luck next year," and I improvised my very famous line, "That's Poison Ivy," and that's what you guys would know me the best from. I've worked so hard. I worked so long for that one line. And that is the actor's plight.
Well, and you obviously knocked it out of the park because they decided to air it again the following year after that. So
they got it for free because that was the last non-union thing I did. So just yeah, here, peanuts, eat those, and don't worry about trying to start a family or have a house ever. So
well, I'm completely gracious for your time here, especially because you have a newborn. So I know, just the fact that you squeezed this into your personal life, I very much appreciate it.
Listen, when I saw The Holiday on the list, I actually felt compelled to say yes. Like, I absolutely have to talk about this movie with somebody who isn't my wife, because this is our yearly, since we started dating and since we've been married, it's our yearly Christmas movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was one of the questions I was gonna ask because it kind of sort of has for us too. It is something that, you know, even though it's not the most. I mean, it's set around the holidays, but it's not necessarily. They don't drive the Christmas thing home a whole lot, but
It's the Shane Black kind of vibe. It's like it's there as a vehicle to make you feel like anything could happen at Christmas.
right. Yeah. Well, so just to jump in a little bit about The Holiday, it came out in 2006, a romantic comedy film written, produced, and directed by Nancy Meyers.
The goat.
Even if you don't know who Nancy Meyers is, chances are you've probably seen one of her films because she directed Private Benjamin, Baby Boom, Father of the Bride Part 2, The Parent Trap, What Women Want, Something's Got to Give, It's Complicated, The Intern. So lots and lots of movies. This film stars Kate Winslet and Cameron Diaz as Iris and Amanda, two lovelorn women from opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean who arrange a home exchange to escape heartbreak during the Christmas and holiday season. Jude Law and Jack Black were cast as the film's leading men, Graham and Miles. The Holiday grossed over $205 million worldwide against a budget of $85 million. Probably most of that went probably to the LA home, maybe even the cottage. But the film received mixed reviews, with critics praising its visual design and the cast performances, though regarded the plot as predictable. Now, that last line was from Wikipedia, but so you made a face. Do you think The Holiday is a predictable film?
Of course it is. Like, it is as by the numbers as it gets. It's just that the by the numbers drawing was created by Picasso. Like, Nancy Meyers invented the formula that she's doing here. And it's just like, I'm not going to be mad at her for playing the hits.
Right. So you said this is a movie that you yearly watch. What is it about that you come back to this every year?
Gosh, that is such a good, like, it is, I think it's the prototype. It's probably what everyone likes about Hallmark movies, really. And every Hallmark movie like that happens today, like, has been kind of watered down to this thing where it's just pure comfort. But they got that formula, this thing that everyone thinks of as the rom-com, from like the Nancy Meyers, and I'm going to just kill myself for not knowing the name off the top of my head, Nora Ephron.
Oh, yeah.
So like Nancy Meyers, Nora Ephron, like these two like are like top of the game as far as like rom-coms go. And they basically invented this particular format and style of comedy and romantic comedy that no one can do as well because they didn't make it. Like, they're just copying it. So like when I see something like The Holiday done by a masterful writer director, I'm just like, yeah, of course I know where it's going, but you're giving it to me on such a beautiful plate. Like, I'm not going to turn my nose up at like comfort food.
Right. No, yeah, that's a good way. That's a good way to frame this movie. I think comfort food for sure, because it's not a movie that you're going to have to think too deeply about, but it's very character driven, and so I think all the characters are really likable, even though we can talk about it a little bit more. I'm not the biggest fan of Cameron Diaz, but I think overall, but you're shaking your head.
Let's talk to you about Cameron Diaz in this movie. I have very strong opinions about Cameron Diaz in this movie.
Go ahead. I want to hear them.
Okay. So I'm not a huge fan of Cameron Diaz as an actor. Like, if you watch her in Gangs of New York, for example, it's painful. It's an interesting choice that was made. And gosh, if I'm never going to meet her. She's like in the stratosphere, so it's fine. I can say what I want. I'm punching up at this point.
Right.
But I think this is actually one of her best movies because you see her, like, her work as an actor like she is so trying and like flailing in the first part, where she is supposed to be this woman who is trying and flailing. She's got it all put together. Like Cameron Diaz is at the top of her popularity. She's like, and like, you know, she can do anything she wants. And yet there's probably something in her that's just like, I'm in a movie where Kate Winslet is also showing up, and I'm going to be completely exposed. Maybe she never thought about that for a second. Who knows? But I'm watching it. I'm just like, you're going to get blown out of the water throughout this entire movie. And the first half of it is exactly that. Like she has this whole scene with Ed Burns, who is like, well, we'll talk about Ed Burns in a second, but like she is just trying to keep her head above water. And I think her as an actress trying to keep her head above water kind of resonates with that character at the same time, of just like, this woman clearly has everything, and yet she is so flawed. And so it works perfectly for me. And then the second she sees Jude Law, she just melts. She drops into it, and she is just having conversations with a guy she finds devastatingly attractive. And for the rest of the movie, or every scene that she's in with him, she is an excellent scene. Like she's an excellent scene partner to watch. Like she's so cool and interesting because she is just playing a game with another person. And so for me, that just works so much well with her character in the movie, like going from this like really high strung, doesn't actually like have this thing together the way she like would like the world to perceive her as being. And then the second she meets this other character, all that goes away, and she's like wondering why it's so easy all of a sudden.
Yeah. No, I like what you said. Probably where she starts to shine more is when she has Jude Law to go bounce ideas off. It's not just this movie. I'm starting to think other times where she is just alone, like when the camera is just on her. That's kind of when some of her flaws might might come out a little bit.
She's just pushing it all the time. Like, and you know, I can't really speak to other movies that she's been in. I mean, obviously I've seen The Mask and My Best Friend's Wedding and Charlie's Angels, but I mean, I kind of forget her performances. Like, this is the only thing that I consistently get to study her work in. And like, that's what I see is just like, you know, I feel like she's really trying to live up to like the words on the page. Like she doesn't get the same material like that she's getting from Nancy Meyers. Like these are like really good words, really great lines of dialogue. And I think that's one of the burdens of the movie is that it's very well written. And these lines of dialogue are the kinds of words that actors always want to say, but unless you can say them naturally as if they're like just coming out of you, then they sound rehearsed, they sound forced. And that's kind of, I think, the hurdle she was like competing with for the first part of the movie. But again, I think it serves her character. I think that that's kind of how she like works in the film.
For me, I really enjoy this movie. It does seem really long for the type of movie that this is. I know how it bridges the gap between like all these actors, but do you think this movie is trying to do too much? Like, could this movie just be, you know, Iris's story and then Amanda's story?
That's a good question. You know, the thing that I think about this movie, one of the other reasons I keep coming back to it is I think it's such an amazing time capsule. If it had come out 2-3 years later, it would not have had to do nearly as much of the heavy lifting to get the plot going. And you could have just cut to the chase. But there's like a whole setup of like, why would these people need to get away? Why would they need to get away quickly? Why would they need to like go end up in a stranger's house? And meanwhile, like right now, I'm clicking on a link to go to an Airbnb like in Laurel, Mississippi, because I want to see it. Like that's the world we live in now, but that is not the world that existed in 2006. And so I think it's kind of a prescient movie in a way. Like, you know, people had started to do like really like interesting takes on, you know, home rentals and stuff. Airbnb didn't exist. That's actually the main thing that I love about this movie, first and foremost, is that it is a time capsule of 2006. Google existed, but Airbnb didn't. Like we still had like desktop computers and Blockbusters. There's an entire scene in this movie, my favorite scene, where we are walking through a Blockbuster video and Jack Black is just pulling physical media off of shelves and saying, look at this movie. Isn't this a good movie? And the soundtrack is incredible. And he just takes Kate Winslet on a tour of cinematic history. And it's just so sweet and nostalgic. It was already nostalgic at the time because there's not a single movie he picked up that wasn't already 15 years old.
Right.
And so like you're watching it now, you're just like the mission, like what is happening here?
Okay, driving Miss Daisy, Hans, very unexpected. Do you remember how great it was? Roodle-dee-doo and scroodle-dee-doo, roodle-dee-doo, that's sassy. Love it. Is this a bad game?
No!
Okay.
Keep going.
All those things come together. I think that's where the movie suffered at the time, but it's also, I think, its strength now, because I love watching the scene of them like trying to navigate, like, is this a crazy person that I'm talking to on the internet? Like, in hindsight, it's so much funnier than it actually is.
Oh yeah.
And at the time, it probably seemed like a contrivance.
Right. Yeah. We watched this this past Christmas. We watched it with Hallie, our oldest, who's 12, and we did have to pause at that moment to be like, when this came out, this was like an unusual concept. So, because even she's realized that, we've stayed in other people's, homes through Airbnb and stuff like that. So, and then I think we probably actually paused that scene in Blockbuster too and said, no, this was a video store.
Videos.
So, yeah. I want to pose to you. Do you think this is a romantic comedy?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's romance and there's jokes. And the drama is way too, like, first of all, we'll talk about Kate Winslet and Arthur. Is it Elie Wiesel? Is that the actor's name?
Yeah. So it's spelled Wallach.
Oh, Eli Wallach. There we go.
Wallach. Okay,
Eli Wallach. Yeah. So yeah, well, I mean, that storyline is fantastic. It's another reason why I love the movie. But I mean, her drama is no drama. Her drama it's like the female version of like an incel. It's kind of crazy that we root for her because you're just like, stop it. Just stop it. It's like what you're doing and like the way you're behaving is sad and pathetic, which is obviously the point. And we obviously feel for her. But like, if you had a friend who was like that in real life, you're just like, I can't hear you talk about this guy anymore. I can't listen to it. I can't do it. And no, thank you. But again, we allow it and we root for it because great writing and Kate Winslet.
Right. I just want to know. I love Kate Winslet. Like anything that she does, she's incredible.
You don't love movies. You don't love, like, there's something wrong with you at your core if you don't love Kate Winslet. I don't understand you.
Yeah. And I think, I don't think we've ever talked. I mean, I know you act, and obviously I love movies because of this podcast. I mean, would you consider yourself a cinephile? Like,
yeah, I like, it's weird. Like there's kind of this strange dichotomy in actors of just like, there's theater nerds and there's film nerds. And like, there's a great number of people who are just like, theater is the real acting. And then there's others like, I want to be on the big screen and nothing else matters. I'm kind of in the middle. Mm-hmm. So I'm a lapsed theater nerd, but my entire life I've watched movies. So the cinephile in me kind of has won out.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, I wonder. I think if you love movies, you love all the odes to movie making, and obviously they talk a lot about the score and stuff. I was wondering, do you think this was the first movie to, I mean, they obviously didn't coin the term meet cute, but was it the first time that this terminology was introduced to the movie going audience?
That's such a good film, like a film guy question to ask, because of course people knew that term. Like it's an inside baseball kind of term. I would be wrong. Like, I'm sure there's probably somebody who's listening to this and he's like, no, it actually happened in 1998.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, as far as I'm concerned, is like from my experience, that's the first time I heard it. And the only time that's ever been mentioned again with any level of like aplomb was in 22 Jump Street, where Channing Tatum and Wyatt Russell have a meet cute sandwich.
I mean, I just made me think about that because I feel like that's just people almost even expect that now, you know, when they watch romantic comedies. There's even on Peacock a movie with Pete Davidson just came out, and it's called Meet Cute. And so I liked how this movie just Arthur kind of becomes our, you know, our teacher.
Yeah,
so to
I mean,
speak.
this entire role is just like, this is what the movies are. This is why I love it. Like, it's, you know, the stuff you see on screen is the finished product, but like, isn't it interesting all the things that you learn when you're on the other side of the curtain? I love that. It's really, I have to say, like, you mentioning that there's an entire movie about that concept makes me cringe though, because I'm just like, that's not what it's for. It's a device. It's like,
Right.
oh man, it's like making a movie out of a blender. It's like, no, the blender makes the meal. Like, you don't, like, what are you doing?
Yeah. One of the reasons I like this movie also is I consider yourself a nice guy. That's a moniker I've gotten like a lot in my life. It's like, oh, Nathan's always so nice. This movie is a celebration of the nice guy. Like Jude Law's character, you know, it's like,
They're such nice boys.
yeah,
Jude,
yeah.
Jack,
Jack,
Arthur, they're just so nice.
yeah. So, you know, other rom-coms kind of play with that, but I think this one really leans into this concept, you know, and even that, like the Jude Law character, like all the characters have some kind of baggage going on,
Right.
and how that brings them all together. But I will say, I do think, is it a little, I can see the connection between Cameron Diaz and Jude Law and their relationship, but do you think the jumping to the love is too fast?
Absolutely. She's catching Miles on the rebound here. Like, that move, like that, I think that's the one thing where just like, okay, we had to tie up some loose ends. She's only here for a week. Like, there wasn't really like, there wasn't any like magic moment where like the light switch went off for those characters. But again, like, and this is just me playing devil's advocate and defending this thing that I love. That's also kind of like what happens in life sometimes. Like, you're friends with somebody and they're just like, yeah, we're just together. This is what this is obviously what we should be doing. It happens in life, so why can't it have a display in a movie? And it's just like kind of given its like its best version of, oh, like, I like you and you like me, and oh my gosh, there's something more here. That's like, it doesn't have to be this big lightning bolt all the time, which I think is kind of cute.
Yeah, I do wish they kind of maybe planted a little bit more of her maybe yearning to be a mother, or just the fact that G Law's characters are like, you know, he's like, you know, that this is the new mom to my two daughters.
Yeah, well, so I think that plays out like a lot more realistically for the most part until they make the decision to just do it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, that actually is like, they are clearly like lightning struck and just all in for each other. And there are some like very significant, very adult things that are keeping them apart. And again, time capsule. Like, no one's job in this movie could not be done remotely now.
Right.
So the entire drama of Cameron Diaz and Jude Law about like, well, you know, like, could we maybe meet in New York every now and then? Do you come to New York? It's like, sometimes, I don't know. It's like, no, you could do your job cutting trailers for stuff in Los Angeles in London. You can just fly back and have meetings or do Zoom. It's fine. And same thing. Oh, you're a book editor. Just send me the PDF, man. Like, I'm catching some rays with my daughters on the beach in my new beachside mansion with my amazingly gorgeous A-list actor-looking wife who just happens to be a small business owner. Like,
I have to mention the two little girls are we were kind of poking fun of accents like early on here, but like, is there anything cute?
Cutest. They're the cutest kids. They said to casting, "Bring me the cutest urchins you can find," and they're just like, "Okay, well, we just churched up a couple of tubercular orphans, and here you go."
Yeah, I mean, it's just
won't you stay?
it's like any kid with a British accent is just it automatically will melt her heart.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's like, again, like Nancy Meyers is completely unfair to Cameron Diaz in this movie. You're just like, you think you can have it all, but did you ever consider meeting these two perfect British children who love you immediately and like affirm your existence? Like, what do you like? Sell your business. You want to stay at home mom, I guess. Like, this is not the message of the movie at all, but like that apparently is the only choice once you meet these children. I'd quit my job for like to parent those children. What are you talking about?
I haven't ever had the chance to go to London, and I actually have never spent any time in LA, crazy enough, but does this movie capture LA well?
That's a very good question. I mean, yes, like all the stuff they talk about, like it is so LA specific. Again, I love just like this magical realism contrivance line that she throws in. It's like, they say when the Santa Ana wind blows, anything can happen. Like, no one says that, Jack. Like, no one says that at all. But it works. And it also, the Santa Anas are very real, and they will blow things in your eyes, and it's miserable. And then, like the Sunset Block is that beautiful and that posh and that like storied and interesting. Like, it is weird when Arthur's talking, it's like, well, when I bought my house, it was the only one here. It's like, no, it wasn't, Arthur. You live on the Sunset Boulevard. There was a movie made about the street you live on. I think more people lived there. So like, there are some things that are just like kind of like zhuzhed up for the story, but yeah, the tone is good. Like the most real thing, honestly, is Jack Black getting broken up with by Shannon Sossamon, who was supposed to be on location in Albuquerque. And she was just in LA the whole time cheating on him. Like, that's probably the most LA thing I could possibly heard. Like, if someone told me that story at a party, I'd be like, hey, man, it happens. I tell you, it happens.
You kind of mentioned some quotes. Are there any quotes that stand out to you that you've always enjoyed?
Well, it's the first introduction of Jack Black. Well, maybe it's not the first, but it's the most memorable to me of Jack Black's Squeedly Doodlies.
Yes.
And just like like Arthur's theme is just so nice. It's like, Arthur lives next door to Iris, who's a squeedly ding. Like, so fun. That all, like, I do Jack Black squeedly doos all the time in my life. I love Dustin Hoffman's brief cameo in the blockbuster. I can't go anywhere. That was great. And then the line that I like actually like I just remember the most, because the first time I saw this movie, I caught it on, it was probably one of those movies they played on TNT. And so I like saw it from the halfway point the very first time I saw it, because I didn't see it in theaters, because I was just like, yeah, I'm a cinephile. I don't go see romantic comedies. It's 2006. I'm kind of a big deal. Just got out of college. I'm very young and handsome. So I caught it on TNT or somewhere, and I saw the end where Cameron Diaz starts to cry, and then the movie trailer guy voice comes on, and he goes, "Amanda, welcome back." I'm like, what happened? Like, that doesn't happen anywhere in the movie after the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Like, the last time it happens, like, having seen the movie now, the last time that happens is like she's on the plane. And then the movie guy voice goes away for the entire rest of the movie until that moment. And I had no idea what was happening. I was like, this movie is garbage. I don't understand what's like, that is insane what I just saw. And so the context really does make a difference.
Yeah, I know the context is there. I will say that's one of the elements of this movie. Those trailer moments I don't really like at all. I don't feel like it fits.
You know, like the problem is that that those things exist in a world where Tropic Thunder now exists, and like the fake, like spot on Hollywood movie trailer got completely crushed by Tropic Thunder. The thing I do appreciate about that is like this was clearly Hollywood's trying to just be like, hey, you recognize this John Krasinski guy? Do you recognize this Catherine Hahn? We would like for you to in the future. So here they are for one scene of this movie where they don't do anything notable. They don't do anything interesting. They are just there. And if you watch it in hindsight, you're just like, is that Catherine Hahn?
Right.
He's just a normal assistant who like, it's kind of weird to just go and look back and just like, oh yeah, that's kind of how people got developed over time. Is just like, yeah, you put John Krasinski in this one scene and you're just like, okay, next time he's going to get 2 or 3. And then the next movie, he's going to lead it. And so like, that didn't really happen for a longer time because of The Office, but like, this is the first introduction really to him. And then like, she uses him, like Nancy Meyers used him again for It's Complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in a slightly bigger role, but like not very big.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, kind of dating us again, but yeah, certainly actors, it's so much easier to self-promote yourself now with everything with social media and stuff. But like they more so had to rely on these just little scenes in a big movie to get attention.
I will say, quick sidebar, I don't think social media helps actors at all. Like, I don't think that any actor who has actually climbed the ladder to any amount of success, like social media is such a secondary thing. Like it really is like who did you know and how soon did you know them? And then you get like the earlier you get in and the earlier you get in with the best people, that's how you rise.
One of my favorite quotes has always been the boob graze line.
Boob graze, accidental boob graze, unintentional.
Yeah. That scene's always made me laugh, and Whitney and I, we always really laugh about that. I was reading up on that. Apparently he accidentally did that to Nancy Meyers, like in real life. And he said that, and it made her laugh so much that she wanted to put it in the movie, which is funny because I think that scene, like, you almost feel like that's like an improvised moment, the way they both play off of that.
Yeah, if you watch him in that moment, it looks like he's just kind of like, there's no way they're going to use this in the movie. Like, he's just like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. As far as favorite scenes, you referenced a couple of times, and it's one of my favorites too. It's just the blockbuster scene. And apparently, I mean, it's from IMDb. I don't know how real it is, but apparently Dustin Hoffman like kind of wandered into the set, and Nancy Meyers threw him in, in that moment. Yeah, sure. But also, I mean, I think the scene of when Amanda discovers, I keep forgetting Jude Law's character's name. That's what's funny, Graham. It's so funny. It's like all these actors. There's
no reason to ever bring up their character names. This movie, they are not characters. This is just, I want to watch Cameron Diaz and Jude Law make out, and I want to watch Kate Winslet and Jack Black be fun people together.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Like, until you mention their names, I've seen this movie a dozen times, and I could not tell you, gun to my head, what anybody's name is in this movie other than what the real life name is.
Right. But when she finally discovers that he has kids, and the whole dinner table scene and Mr. Napkin Head, and then the nighttime where they're all underneath the tent, I really think that's a real well played out scene. And
it's lovely.
Amanda, you're gonna love this. It's so funny. I mean, you'll fall off your chair. It's so funny.
Hello. My name is Mr. Napkin Head. Hello, children. Who's this? Who's this strange?
Amanda.
And why has he got that funny accent?
Amanda.
Yes, but where's he from?
I mean, I remember seeing it the first time, and then he's on the phone, and then you realize the two girls he's talking to is his daughters.
Those phones, though, it's bad. That's like my one note. Nancy, one note. If I had one note, Nancy, your daughters each have individual cell phones with individual cell phone numbers, and the oldest one is 7. Like, I don't think so. I don't think you're getting phone calls from your child's name and then your other child's name. And like the other one's like 5. She doesn't have a cell phone. I'm sorry. That's insane.
I think any scene with Iris and Arthur is wonderful. I think that's kind of I mean, I'm sure there's been different scenes and pairings, so to speak, but I really like that relationship there, and especially the ceremony at the end and how that all plays out of him. That's a fantastic scene. I think
it's wonderful, and I like that love letter to the movies is everything that I love about this film in particular. I think it's so smart to use Eli Wallach. I actually just recently watched Magnificent Seven for the first time, and he's the bad guy in it.
I need to watch that again.
You got to do a rewatch of it because he is so good. Like every other bad guy in every other Western is like just a scene chewer and just like, I am a mustache twisting evil guy. Like, and the best version obviously is Curly Bill from Tombstone. But like, if you pull back Curly Bill from Tombstone and made him an actual like real person and not an arch villain archetype, you get Eli Wallach in the Magnificent Seven. He's just the leader of a group of bad men, and he's in charge and he has to feed them. So he's doing what he has to do and he's all bad things, but like, he's only there doing these bad things because he's like, I got to feed my men to do the thing that we're doing. Mm-hmm. Like, that's it. That's his entire character motivation. And Eli Wallach brings so much realism and truth to this villain. It's incredible. And so to watch a guy who has been in one of the greatest movies of all time be in this movie and talk about the way things were and talk about these nostalgic, like Hollywood used to matter in this way that was like mystifying to people. It was a religious experience for a lot of people. I love that element to this movie. And I think that that's why it works in this, like there's like this thread of magical realism all throughout the film that's never quite like acknowledged by any of the characters involved. But if you're watching and listening to it, it starts just like, oh, it's Hollywood. Like, these people are living in a Hollywood story. So of course it's predictable. Of course there's a formula to it because it's the liturgy. It's the story that we all came here to see. It's something we know, but we're being presented to something in a new way. So that's, again, like those Arthur scenes in particular, him talking about screenwriting and the craft and like all the people. And it's like, oh, Cary Grant was from Surrey. How'd you know that? Well, they told me one time.
Movie musings.
Have you ever shed a tear?
Have I ever shed a tear? Are you kidding me? Yes. The first thing that comes to mind, like movie-wise, when I cry is absolutely Harry Bailey at the end of It's a Wonderful Life. The thing again, it's another one of those movies you watch 100 times or you don't watch while it's on 100 times because it's on every year. But if you go back and watch It's a Wonderful Life, the day that George Bailey has this horrible day, it's supposed to be the homecoming of his war hero brother who just got the the Congressional Medal of Honor. And there's supposed to be this big, huge to-do about Harry Bailey. And all this attention shifts to his brother who stayed home and like did the right thing all the time. And like everybody in town shifts their attention to take care of George, including Harry, who takes a jet in to be with his brother. And he says, to my big brother, George, the richest man in town. And every time I'm just like,
yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, I'm a puddle every single time.
Yeah. I might catch some flack for this, but before I go into that, I don't know if I even should open myself up to that.
Be controversial. That's how the podcasts get the listens. That's how you get the likes and the retweets.
Well, I have always been someone that can, I can be very cynical in nature, but I mean, the right, Christmas commercial, I mean, I can easily get tears in my eyes. Like, I love Survivor.
So much flack for this.
Yeah. No, I haven't gone into that territory, but like, I love Survivor. Anytime they do family reunions or that sort of thing. I can be a little cynical about the the military families that like surprise their loved ones when they come
Oh,
home
yeah.
because it becomes so like it's become such a thing now that you're like, okay, kind of who is this for? But it still makes me like tear up
Instant
every time.
emotions, instant crying, and I'm also a little bit mad. I'm just like, that's manipulative. Don't show,
Yeah.
don't show me this incredibly private moment in
Right.
this family. Like, this is not for me. I shouldn't be watching this. Stop it.
Yeah. So
100%.
anyway, people might say, hey, how dare you with that? But anyway, not them surprising their families, but maybe
that we are made to watch it.
At the Oklahoma City Thunder game, kind of like, is this the moment to do this? But anyway, so have you ever taken a spontaneous vacation?
Yeah, kind of. I'm actually doing one right now. So my wife and I are going to go visit her family in the Bronx because her brother hasn't met our baby yet. So like last month, we're just like, we're going. And we planned this whole road trip. So we're going to be driving from Texas to New York and then staying there for like a month and then coming back.
Oh, cool. Well, that'd be cool. At least you're getting to spend some time. That's a long road trip.
It's a long. Well, I mean, we're going to stop a lot along the way. Like that's the other thing. Is just like I'm going to get to see friends from high school and people who moved away from Los Angeles. Like it's really cool.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
So it's talked a lot about in this movie, but what's one of your favorite movie scores?
Ooh, that is such a good question. I think it's a little bit of a cop out because it's in the movie, but Last of the Mohicans is impeccable. If you were ever looking for like focus music, the Daft Punk score to Tron Legacy is amazing.
Okay.
Like, it will just like dial you in to like if you have to write or if you have to study or anything, like Daft Punk score Tron Legacy. And then gosh, is there any other ones that like really get to me? Yeah, I think just those. Yeah.
I have to throw it. It might be a cliche pick, but Jurassic Park, that theme like has always like stuck in my brain. So I've always, and I remember I really liked the Braveheart soundtrack for some reason. I think it's got some good music in there, but if you ever listen to that soundtrack, I think it features a lot of bagpipes as well, which isn't the most comforting sound you can ever listen to.
No, it's that one I like. It fits to its moment for sure, but I'd never take that one out of context. I don't think.
Rom-com rankings.
The first category, romantic chemistry between the leads. So I will say this movie is a little bit different because there it's clearly two different, couples in this stance. So I guess this ranking will have to be maybe kind of a culmination of the two. So from like 1 heart being the lowest, 5 hearts being the highest, what would you give the romantic chemistry in this movie?
I'd have to say like a 3.5 because like Jude Law and Cameron Diaz are a 4. Like they're not all the way there. I don't think there's obviously better, like more excellent examples of great chemistry. And then like, yeah, it kind of like it suffers a little bit between Kate Winslet and Jack Black because it is pure friendship until he asks her out on a date. So I'd say like that's a 3.
Yeah. Yeah, my overall ranking was a 3, kind of touching on what we did a little bit. Like, I think Amanda and Graham are really good in the long run for each other, but how they get there so fast, I'm a little confounded by a little bit.
See, that's the chemistry. That's where the chemistry actually is, like makes it all make sense.
Yeah, but I think you hit it. I think Kate Winslet and Jack Black, their characters, I'm with you. I think they're super cute in this movie, but kind of thinking, and I don't even think this movie is trying to necessarily set them up as, people that will end up with each other. Maybe people will kind of, argue with me on that one, but I think they're more so like they're there for each other to both get them past a hump. And I could see them maybe going on a couple of dates and going, this was fun, but
I mean, if their first date wasn't a transatlantic flight to London at New Year's to meet her entire family, I would say you may have a point.
Yeah.
These two people clearly are the type of people who are so desperate to be in a relationship with each other that have not really done the introspection and the work to realize that they need to be okay on their own for a little while. They are absolutely going to get together, and I can only pray that they see a couples therapist. But they were absolutely set up to be together by this movie.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is a little off topic, but I have to say, I mean, I've always been a huge Jack Black fan, and I think it's fair to say, for the most part, in his like everyday demeanor, he's pretty unkept. I guess you could say. Usually, scraggly beards, but like he's a handsome guy in this movie.
Well, as somebody who gets that he looks like Jack Black a lot, I appreciate that. But yeah, no, he really is like the decent chap kind of male lead. Like again, like we kind of coming back to like we're celebrating the nice boys in this one, of just like, yeah, no, they need a win. They're actually like really good people. Like compare them to Edward Burns, who is just a cheating dog. Which, by the way, before we close out, like I need to say, like, another great writing thing that Nancy Meyers does in this movie is she puts the truth and the exposition in the mouth of the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of the things that we learn about Cameron Diaz's character that like are her actual real issues that have gotten in the way of her real life relationships come to us from this guy who has cheated on her. So like he is trash. He is filth. He deserves to get kicked out, but he does not tell one other lie other than that big one. Like everything else he says is the absolute truth. And so I love that device when you're just like, oh, I hate this guy, and everything he says is absolutely accurate.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. The second category I have is the best friend. So there's usually a best friend component here. Once again, this movie's kind of a little tricky on this, but I easily pin Arthur into this category because
quirky best friend of all time. He's like, if you're going to have one best friend in a rom-com, you might as well have an Oscar-winning screenwriter legend just show up and adopt you and just decide to look out for your well-being. Like, although in real life, you don't want a degenerate screenwriter anywhere near your romantic life, but
yeah, I'll just go ahead and say it. I gave him 5 hearts. I think he's absolutely wonderful in this movie.
100%. And then on the other side of the coin, like the best friend characters has to go to the girls. Like they're the ones who are just like rooting for them to get together. They're the ones who are also saying like true things, and they're like putting all these little seeds out there for these nuggets of wisdom for the main characters to chew on, which is the entire purpose of a best friend in these movies. So like the little girls on that side, I mean, can you give 10 hearts because there's 2 of them? They are adorable and unassailable.
Of course. We talked about movie score. So the third category I have is the soundtrack. And this one, if you went and bought the soundtrack, I think it would be mainly the score from Hans Zimmer. And so, but great thing about Spotify, somebody compiled a playlist that was, I mean, it was literal like of the movie, score than the song. And so the actual soundtrack kind of was a mixture of his score with a lot of it seemed to kind of be a Motown type of music. There's some
it's like all the trailer songs.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know if you had a chance to listen to the soundtrack. I didn't know how you would rank it.
I mean, the one thing that I remember is Arthur's theme, and that sticks. Like, Arthur's theme is just like the thing that really helps is that they just really break it down inside the movie. It's just like it sounds like Arthur. It sounds like that character, and so to just so clearly see that attachment of sound and image, like it's just, again, I think there's some that this movie, in addition to being entertaining, it teaches you a lot about filmmaking. And Arthur's theme, it's like I'm not going to give it a 5 because of course there's better ones, but it sticks. It's really good. It's fun and it's light. It's a 4.
Yep, that's why I gave the soundtrack as well. Listening to it, it's a beautiful. I mean, it's Hans Zimmer. He's done Gladiator, Pirates of the Caribbean, Lion King. I mean,
The range of this man.
yeah, it's incredible. And to me, it was a soundtrack that if I was writing or trying to do something creative,
Get yourself typing away at a typewriter.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is good stuff.
Yeah. But I will say, when I listened to the soundtrack, was I'm getting ready for a half marathon. So I listened to this. I did my last long run this past weekend, and I used it as a chance to listen to the soundtrack. The soundtrack is not a good one to run to, I will say, because definitely in the moments of when the movie gets sad, the score is very sad.
Give up on your run. Your heart is broken now. Stop it.
Yeah. So as I was running, I was like, when is Arthur's theme coming? When is it coming? I need it right now.
I will say, okay, on the subject of running though, I do have to mention, again, taking tropes and reversing them. We got a reverse airport run where where Cameron Diaz is on her way to the airport and she gets out of the car and runs the opposite direction to find Graham just sobbing in his kitchen. And
well, that's a perfect segue into my fourth category, which is the chase scene or the declaration of love.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is kind of interesting, but it is funny. I mean, obviously it's intentional, but it really takes her a long time to get back to that cabin.
That is such a drawn out scene. It is I as much as I was enthusiastic about it, just thinking about it, watching it is a bit of a chore. It's just like watching Cameron Diaz run, why are you wearing heels anyway? Unnecessary. And also plot hole, the guy wouldn't turn around in the lane, and yet he was perfectly able to get to the front door to pick her up. Same driver. And he clearly has not changed as a character. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy who's like, you know what, I think I'll go the extra mile this time. No, plot hole.
Yeah. So how would you rank this? And I don't know if there's really a big declaration of love between Jack Black and Kate Winslet. I mean, he asked her out, but
again, it is so low key. It's like, hey, what are you doing New Year's Eve? I'm going back to London. Oh, I've never been to London. First of all, again, if that happened in real life, put yourself in real life situation. You've met this guy 4 days ago, and he's just like, what if I just bought a plane ticket and followed you back to your life? What do you think about that? Run. He's a murderer. The only reason it works is because it's a movie and Arthur signed off on him.
Right, yeah.
Again, I think that's why you need an Arthur. It's just I like these two kids together.
Yeah. Yeah. He's basically the grandparent that gives the blessing, basically. But yeah, I gave it 3 hearts. It does play into the trope of the actual, there's somebody literally running to the other person.
Yeah.
But the way the trailer voice comes in, we've talked about that.
Okay. And on that, so I'm going to give it 2 stars because of that. So this is, it's still one of my favorite parts because it was so jarring the very first time I saw it. But now knowing that moment, the movie guy voice doesn't bother me, but the obvious, Cameron Diaz absolutely doesn't know how to cry on camera, which is totally fine. It's totally acceptable. No, not as many actors can do it as you would think. But the way that they shot it, where it's just her head is straight back and then she comes forward and tears just come straight down her face. There's they just absolutely said, okay, hold. And they just put an entire bottle of tears in her eye and just, okay, hold it. And then just come on action, just come forward. Just no, that does not work. That's not the breakthrough that you think it is. It's I know the whole point of your character is that you don't cry ever since your parents got divorced. But no, Cameron, that was bad.
And then I could just see Jude Law really just being just give me a moment.
Give me a moment. Yes. I'm thinking about something very sad, I don't know, not getting a date. I don't What that's a good thought exercise. What makes Jude Law sad? Like,
Oh,
he's had
man.
a very charmed life that I can tell, but I did like an accidental deep dive into his career just because I started watching the Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Oh, okay.
Which came out in 97, 98, something like that. But he plays the young gay hustler in Savannah, Georgia, and it's a start. It's again John Krasinski role where he's in like 2 scenes, and it's like, hey, this guy's gonna be big someday. Can you do a Southern accent? He's like, I believe I can. It's rough.
Oh, I have to check that out now. Well, and the last category I have is the rewatchability of this film. How would you rank it?
5. I mean, I will watch it every year for the rest of my life. I think just like that's our Christmas movie. Like it's 2 weeks out from Christmas. Like we're gonna watch that. We're gonna watch Just Friends, and at some point I'm gonna force my wife to watch It's a Wonderful Life. So.
Okay, yeah. I really struggled with this, and especially talking to you, like, I do really like this movie. And it has come up on holidays. I gave it 3.5 just because I do think the length of it is a little taxing for me, especially I think maybe I was more aware. Like I mentioned, we showed it to Hallie. And when it was over, we asked her if she liked it, and she's like, "Yeah, it was really long." And I was like, "Yeah, it does take its time, but yeah."
I feel like if you cut out the movie trailer scene and the setting up the plot of like Iris and Amanda like meeting online, then like you take easily like 10 minutes out of the movie.
Yeah,
and it's much tighter.
Yeah.
Because I mean, yeah, like imagine like if this movie was made today, I mean, so much would have to change, obviously. But like if nothing else was different other than we don't really care about movie trailers anymore, or like they're all done in-house at Marvel, and the Airbnb exists. You're just like, hey, I'm really looking forward. Like, I love your house in the Cotswolds. It's exactly what I need. It's a great area because I checked it out on Google Maps. Great. Just cut to the chase. We just know that you're going there, and we know that she's coming here because that's the weird website you chose to do instead of Airbnb. Like we are familiar enough. We're well versed in how things work in that sphere that we don't need a 5-minute conversation. You're just like, how do are there any men there?
Yeah,
we know where you're going. We know why she's going. Like, stop it.
Yeah. And I would say, even though there are a little bit of comedic elements in this, it's a pretty serious movie. It's going more for the drama than it is for the comedy. So I think you have to be definitely in a mood for this one. And around the Christmas time is a good time to watch it when you have a little more time. Fireplace is going, like you mentioned, comfort food. But as far as just like, oh, I'm going to pop on the holiday, I don't really do that very often.
So I do agree on a certain point. Like the drama is there. I think the drama really is all brought by Kate Winslet, who is just like really working through her relationship issues. I feel like if there's one thing I regret about this conversation is that we haven't talked enough about Iris and we haven't talked enough about Kate Winslet in this movie, because she, again, like I think I said at the beginning, she blows everyone else out of the water. She is in a completely different movie from everyone else because this is real life to her. Like she is life and death in love with this awful, awful man who is played by an amazing Rufus Sewell, I think.
Yeah.
Like who is just the most perfect villain, just completely full of himself writer. It's like, could you read my book? I'm just so helpless, please. No man who is as tall and good looking as him like should be that pathetic, and yet it works. Like it's so cringeworthy to watch. I love it. And for her to just like process that relationship, like the opening scene at the Christmas party is devastating and funny at the same time. Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, like about it being more like being somewhat dramatic, but I think ultimately it's pure comedy because her situation is so laughable. Like she treats it like drama, which any good comedian will do. But it's so fun. It's like, why you feel so bad for this asshat? Like, what? No, you're so like, and it immediately makes you her best friend. It's like, no, I like, I'm not done with you. I actually want you to do well. I want you to realize that you're perfect and you're beautiful and you're going to just do so much better once you get over this guy. And so like, that's like, if there's drama, if there's stakes, it's that for her. But like watching her treat it so seriously is for me what makes it so funny is just like, yeah, like that is absolutely where people come from in their life. They make this really ultimately small thing life and death because that's all they think that they're capable of. And so I like the movie for that reason. Just like, oh, her realizing that she's worth the mansion.
Right. I did you talking through that. It kind of made me think a little bit. I do like how Iris, even though what was this, a 2-week span or whatever?
I think it's just 1 week. I think it's like 1 week around Christmas.
She essentially seems like she like owns LA in this week's span. Like I can see her walking down the street and everybody's like, "Hey, Iris! Oh, hey, how's it going?"
Again, that's the one other plot hole, and like I forgive it immediately because it has to do with like making Arthur ready for his big day. Right. But like she has a whole Rocky training montage with this old man who has to use a walker, and she's like, "I'm going to make it so you don't use that walker when you get to so you're confident." And it's like, lady, if that was the real time frame you had, and you somehow convinced him that was real, we get to like Arthur's and he just like girds himself up for the stairs, and he takes one step and he falls and he breaks his hip, and you've murdered this man. That's what would really happen,
right? Yeah.
Like that condensed time frame of it just being a week vacation, and somehow she fits all that in. Like that's the other thing about this movie. I'm just like, okay, you're really pushing some stuff.
Yeah, they're like, maybe you should maybe think about a different profession. Maybe you should go into physical therapy because you have worked wonders with Arthur.
You are a miracle worker.
Recommendations.
Is there anything you would like to recommend to our listeners out there?
So in the nature of great rom-coms that are underrated rom-coms from the same time period, I don't know if you've talked about or are going to talk about Just Friends, but you absolutely should watch Just Friends if you haven't seen it. It's another imperfect movie, I would say, especially for themes that do not hold up at all anymore, but it is still one of my favorites. I watch it every year. Let's see. This is super random, but I've never watched a season of Survivor until right now. I'm watching Survivor for the first time, and it is blowing my mind how
this season,
because my brother just started watching it. So I'm watching Survivor, and it's like the machinations. These people are just so devious. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's funny. I'm a huge Survivor fan, so I've seen all the seasons. So it's crazy that this is like your first experience.
Well, a little bit about me. When I was in high school, the very first season of Survivor, right before it came out, I went to youth camp, and I decided to take a pledge that no one asked me to take. That like I was just like, you know what? This is my devotion. I'm going to give up watching TV because I was a huge indoor kid, watched TV all the time. So I went the entire summer and didn't watch a bit of television. And that was the year that Survivor premiered and blew up, and everyone was talking about it. And like my TV fast was done right before the finale. So I just like watched the finale of it. And I was just like, this is dumb. Like, I don't understand what any of you guys like about this show. And then I never watched it until just now. I'm just like, oh, I've got so much to catch up on.
Yeah, I can point you towards some great seasons if you truly want to rewatch some of them. Mm-hmm. But it's funny that you said that because yes, during that time, Survivor was so big. especially if you attended church, but any kind of camp, how many camps like stole the Survivor logo or made their theme around that show?
I mean, how many like people who went on to work on Survivor got all of their puzzles from youth camp though? Like,
Right.
Like every episode of Survivor is like, this is just beach camp from 1995. What's like, it's with a budget is the difference.
Yeah. My recommendation, and I'm curious if you've watched this. I promise you I didn't write this down because you were on the show, but one of my favorite TV shows, Barry, just started its 4th season and its last season with Bill Hader. Have you seen that on HBO Max?
I love Barry. I've only seen season 2 though, because I went through a period where I didn't have HBO Max for a while. So
gotcha.
I need to catch up on season 3 and 4. It is the most harrowing show I've ever seen in my entire life because, again, like talk about something that's true Los Angeles. Those acting classes, like I worked at an acting studio for 10 years and I taught classes, and like Henry Winkler is a scary, scary man in that show. It is just like, please tell me that that's not what I come off as an acting teacher. But those acting classes, I mean, especially when you're new to LA, when you're new to acting on film, and you're just like, well, I got to get into a class. That's what you're supposed to do. And so like the very first class you take, you're just like, well, it's a class in Hollywood, so they must be telling me the truth. And everyone around me is in the same boat. So you bond with these really disparate people, and some of them are phenomenal and some of them are toxic and some of them are unwell and some of them are like going to be future superstars, and there's just no telling which is which until several months in.
Yeah, the show I always front it with it, especially as it's gone on, and I won't ruin anything for you. I mean, it always has been a dark comedy. I will say it started off more comedy, and as it's progressed, it's leaned more into the darker side than the comedy side. But it's an amazing show, and I've only watched the first episode so far of this last season, but that's my recommendation. I think people could quickly binge them, and it's a great show.
Oh, one more recommendation.
Yeah,
Slow Horses on Apple TV.
Oh yeah, I've heard good things about that show.
It's fun. It's a good spy show. It's very different from your usual like spy fare. It's just a bunch of like screw ups and underdogs who are like just shoved to the side, so that the real intelligence officers can get to their work. And it just follows these guys who are just kind of like drawn into the seedier side of like British intelligence, to be used as pawns and patsies, and they kind of like start to figure out that's what they're being used for, and they try and fight against it. So it's very fun to watch.
Well, next week we will be traveling back to Beverly Hills in the early 90s to talk about the classic Clueless. We've been covering a lot of movies towards the bottom of the list. The Holiday was number 16, but I thought it was time to analyze a true favorite for a lot of people, and it's at number 4 on the list, which is pretty high up there. So
bring me back to talk about Clueless, man.
I know we have to bring you back definitely to talk about some of these movies. But as always, check out moviesourlife.com for episodes, reviews, and more. If you listen to us on Spotify, make sure to pay attention to our polls and questions on the episode page. I always like to kind of hear from our fans and see what they think about the movies that we're covering. And I want to thank you for taking the time to come on and do this. I never thought The Holiday would bring us back together 15 years later, but you know.
It's the power of movies, Nate.
And the power of technology, right? Like the fact that we can connect from long distances.
And well, if you'll excuse me, I do need to go try out your water slide.
Oh yeah, please do.
Don't wreck my Cotswolds cottage though.
Okay, I won't bump my head on the low ceilings.
There you go.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.